It's time for Rishi Sunak to take his fingers out of his ears and face facts. He says that he will leave the ECHR if necessary. I don't believe him. I don't think you believe him. And why should you believe a man who wants his entire legacy to be banning smoking and introducing more A-levels? Here's Suella.
I was calling to leave the ECHR back in 2022. When I was Home Secretary, I was constantly urging the Prime Minister to take bolder action and go further. He did regularly disagree with me on many of the suggestions that I made to him.
Today it's emerged that Rwanda is selling off houses that were supposed to be used for illegal migrants. It's almost like Mr Sunak knows his plan isn't going to work.
I'm disappointed to read that expectations have fallen and that the Rwandans are now selling off some of those properties, because the way the plan should work, and the plan that I put forward to the Prime Minister, was that we need to have a large number of flights going to Rwanda on a regular basis.
It's almost like we have violent thugs waiting to cross the channel. It's not exactly what Winston Churchill meant when he said that we'd fight them on the beaches, is it? I don't know what world Rishi Sunak is living in, but this is the real world.
At the moment, I'm very, very worried about the prospect of a Labour government. I believe Keir Starmer would undo Brexit. I believe that he would increase migration willingly.
And these are real facts. Reform are polling at their best level, 15%. They say that they turn the boats back, don't they? Rishi says that he wants to bring legal immigration down, but he's presided over record levels of legal immigration, and his former immigration minister revealed this on this very show.
Once did we have a conversation about legal migration because the Prime Minister didn't want to talk about it.
Didn't want to discuss migration with his immigration minister. Rishi says this about tax.
And so, to grow the economy, we will take 5 long-term decisions. Reducing debt, cutting tax and rewarding hard work.
That's a lie, isn't it? I think it's a lie. As of January, for every £1 cut by his national insurance tax reductions, we now have, in effect, anyway, £4 extra stealth taxes. And things have only got marginally better since then. We remember his 5 pledges, don't we? His cutting NHS waiting list was in there, wasn't it? Well, he gets Jeremy Hunt to come out and say this during the budget.
I have 3 gorgeous children, the oldest of whom has been patiently listening in the gallery. The NHS is rightly the biggest reason most of us are proud to be British.
No, it isn't. Lob another £7 billion at it, though, anyway. The ONS has just revealed that NHS waiting lists are probably 2 million people higher than first thought. Prisons now. Alex Chalk, the Justice Minister, has snapped at Sunak for being unable to make a decision on prison overcrowding. So now we're just going to release people early. The police don't respect him. Remember this?
Say this to the police. We will back you when you take action. But if we are asking more of the police, we in government must also back up that call with action.
I think the next day or the day after that, there was just total havoc, massive amounts of anti-Semitism on the streets. Nothing really happened. I think, we can go live now, can we, to Rishi Sunak outside Downing Street? He's got a message for the nation. Is that right, I think? Yeah, there it is. There it is. Downing Street's on fire behind him there. But apparently the message is everything is fine and everything is going really, really well. OK, look, Mr Prime Minister, I will tell you what your problem is, OK? It is not that you make the wrong decision. It is that you are totally incapable of making any decision at all. Now, over the weekend, I spoke to several people involved with the Conservative Party, and today I spoke to 2 Conservative MPs. They all, completely unsolicited, said the same thing to me. Now, I would just also like to go on record at this point and say I am not saying I agree with this. I'll emphasise that. I am not saying I agree with this. But they said the same thing. There is a man who could fend off Keir Starmer and rescue the Tories. Do you want to know who they all said? That man, they said, is David Cameron. Let's get the thoughts of my panel now. Conservative MP for Romford, Andrew Rosindell, GBNews contributor, Albi Amankona, and author and broadcaster, Amy Nicole Turner. Andrew, would you have Cameron back?
No.
He's been Prime Minister. He walked out of 10 Downing Street having lost the referendum. I think he's done his time as Prime Minister. Rishi is our Prime Minister. He needs to show strong leadership for our country. I hope he does that, because if we don't, we're going to finish up with the most left-wing Labour government in the entire history of this country, and we're going to rue the day we let Labour back into power.
Albie, apparently, Tory MPs, well, they are, they're telling me about it, are saying that, yes, it might be unlikely, but they think if David Cameron came back, they would stand a chance in the next election.
I mean, one of my biggest regrets of supporting Brexit is, in fact, David Cameron resigning after he lost the Brexit referendum. For me, I was really disappointed in that. I wanted David Cameron to go on. I still think, had he stayed on, I think the situation would be different. But Andrew is right. Rishi Sunak is the Prime Minister. He's not going anywhere. It would be totally bonkers for any Conservative to try and depose Rishi Sunak now. Because in the eyes of the public, the Conservative Party would look like complete idiots. We've already got rid of...
it might be a bit late for that?
Well, no. I think it would be even worse if we got rid of Rishi Sunak. We got rid of Liz Truss. We got rid of Boris Johnson. What we want to go for the third and see if the third time it's going to be better. It's not going to get any better.
Starmer would be more fearful of David Cameron than Rishi Sunak.
I think we've all got these David Cameron rose spectacles on with this hindsight sentimentality about him, which is probably because since he's been Foreign Secretary, because he's a Lord, no MPs can ask him any questions, so he appears a lot more flawless than perhaps he is in the role at the moment. Also, he doesn't really do many press conferences. He's kind of absolved from all scrutiny at the moment, but to me, he will always just be the Prime Minister of austerity, which is one of the most damaging policies that's ever been.
I think when you look back, though, and I really do think it is undeniable. And again, I'll go on record and say I am, by the way, not personally calling for David Cameron to come back. And hear people throwing things at television screens from here. But he's a much better operator. And when you look at how bad at politics Rishi Sunak is, I mean, that's his ultimate undoing, isn't it? Rishi's not a good politician.
Look, David Cameron's in the House of Lords. It's hard to see how you can have a Prime Minister who's unelected, not only as party leader, but also as an MP. So I don't think this is realistic. At the moment, we've just got to fight very hard to rescue the country from the prospects of a socialist government, which I think would do huge harm to our country.
Do you know what,
Rishi's our leader, so we have to get behind him.
Come on, I'll tell you what, just before we go to Amy on this then, right, so what more damage do you think a Labour government would do than... You know, we're in quite a bad situation now. I think many people would agree. So go on, what would be worse under Labour?
Oh, there's no end to the damage they would do. So there would be absolutely no serious attempt to control immigration whatsoever. They would quietly take us back into the European Union, slowly but surely, very quietly.
The single
but they would do
market,
it.
perhaps?
That's not something that I would ever want to see happen. I think we're far better being an independent country. And, Patrick, can you name me a country in the world where socialism has worked?
No.
It doesn't work. It always leads to people being poorer in the end.
Or like in Venezuela, eating zoo animals for food.
You just can't call the current iteration of the Labour Party a left-wing Labour Party, the most right-wing Labour Party there's been for absolutely years.
All the Corbynistas are hiding away.
All the Corbynistas have been kicked out.
As soon as Starmer's in
They're not even in. They're not even in. They've been in lockstep with most of your policies.
Do you think it's good enough to try and get people to vote Conservative by saying, well, look, Labour would be worse? I think what Patrick is trying to say is people feel that things are pretty bad as they are. Give me a reason that we should be voting Conservative.
Right, so I actually trace a lot of this back to the pandemic and the lockdowns. The damage lockdowns did were horrendous. Yeah. People are not factoring this in. We borrowed $400 billion. Of course we're going to be in trouble over that. So whichever government was in at the time, they would have made the same mistake. In fact, Labour would have carried on lockdowns longer and deeper. So we've now got to gradually rebuild our economy. We've got to carry on with our work for trade agreements around the world, and we're doing an incredibly good job at that, despite all the scare stories that we wouldn't be able to do it. What we don't need is a dose of socialism.
What about Suella Braverman, though? I mean, you know, do you think that it's right for her to come out on radio or TV or whatever and say those things, saying, I don't believe Rishi Sunak when he's going to leave the ECHR. I think we're heading for a loss. I mean, is she just saying the truth?
Look, I agree with what Suella is saying in the main. She was right about the ECHR. The Conservative Party needs to bite the bullet on this. Frankly, the principles of human rights are completely correct, but we don't need a foreign court overriding our laws and making laws over and above what's in our best interest.
And that court, Albie, who today has decided to side with 2,000 elderly Swiss women and Greta Thunberg.
I don't know why Suella is piping up. She's been a member of the government for a very long time. Okay, she's not in government anymore. She's trying to absolve herself from all of the problems that the government has caused over the past 14 years. She was the Home Secretary for 2 years. Don't know what she's done. She was the Attorney General before that. She was the Attorney General before that. Don't know what she did. She was one of the first cabinet ministers to stab Boris in the back on ITV Peston show. I don't understand why Suella's piping up.
Also,
her hands are as dirty in this as any other Tory ministers are. So I don't know why she's piping up.
And I have reason to not believe what she's saying anyway, because when she did her promo tour of Rwanda and was fluffing the pillows and posing for photographs, those houses were already on Rwandan estate agent websites. So it was always the intention to sell those houses to Rwandans, and it's just nonsense to now go back and go, oh, this is something Rishi's done and I didn't know about. You did know about it, and you're talking rubbish.
Go on, Andrew. I mean, do you want to come back on that?
She's been consistent about the ECHR. She's
consistently bad. That's what she's been.
But ultimately...
Well, she's got a lot of support. She's got a heck of a lot of support.
What support has she got? How far did she get in the leadership contest?
Well, she has got a huge amount of support with the British public, actually.
The ECHR...
Which does matter.
The ECHR is like the new Brexit, isn't it?
No.
It's like, oh, let's blame everything on that.
issues than Brexit.
Right.
In the fact that no one understands it, and you can convince them that they should leave it.
We must be sovereign in our own country.
All right, OK, well, look...
Didn't we found the ECHR?
We're going to have more time to talk about this.
And write all the laws.
OK, Amy. Sorry. We have more time to talk about this, because coming up...